Hello, and welcome to Book 4, Chapter 5 of You Should Be Reading. This week, I'd like to talk to you about The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Now, this is a book that was recommended to me by a very good friend of mine. Um, she said that she had heard that it was like Harry Potter, but for adults. And that immediately grabbed my attention. She tends to know what's going to be up my alley. So she recommended that to me. So I ended up seeing it over at my local bookstore, and I picked up a copy of it. Finally got around to reading it, and my reactions were mixed. Um, I Let me explain how things went. Now, first, let's talk a little bit about what it's about. You've got a young man by the name of Quentin Coldwater, and he is extremely intelligent but miserable in his life. He used to read a series of children's novels back in the day that he really, really liked and wished they were real. And then he ends up finding his way from uh, the middle of New York City, this tiny little garden, to someplace in upper state New York where it's summertime, even though it was winter in New York City. And he's at a college for magical uh, studies. And he ends up performing real magic and getting admitted there. And it tends to follow this book for pretty much the first half to two-thirds tends to follow his time there at Breakbills, this wonderful little place of higher learning. And then the rest kind of move on into this other world that they managed to find their way into. I'm not going to spoil anything from that far in, but I'll just say that much, that it's another world. Now, that's the entire premise of the book. It goes through all this. He meets people, has friends, finds love. Uh, his life is very complicated. Now, the thing that I found extremely strange um, is that while reading this book, during about the first third of it, um, I was extremely interested. It grabbed me and pulled me in. The plot was interesting. The characters were interesting. The entire concept really got a hold of my interest and didn't want to let go. Uh, and I really liked that. I liked the setup. I liked the realism of the characters. And then during the second third of the book, I found myself losing interest. I found that the characters, the situations that they were in, some of the revelations that were happening, I found all this to be developing a very, almost a cynical edge to it, uh, in that it was kind of bleeding through from the author. Now, I don't know if this is the case. I got no idea. This is just my own opinions. But it felt to me that the author, uh, that his cynicism, if he is indeed cynical, I don't know, was bleeding through into the narrative. And I was kind of picking that up because everything seemed to be progressing, but also falling apart and getting worse at the same time. And it was very strange to me. Um, and it was a bit of a slog to push myself through to read it. Then I hit the latter third, the third third, if you will, and it started grabbing my interest a little more and pulling me through it, um, and so that I finished it in a bit of a spurt. Now, the strange thing about it is that when I hit that second third and I was pushing myself through it, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to finish reading this book, but I don't think I'm ever going to read the other two in the trilogy because this is the first one in the trilogy. And then by the time I hit the end of this one, the whole thing had my interest again that I may end up getting the second book to see if that's any better. And that's never really happened to me. In any book that I've read, either I'm engaged the whole way through or I'm not, and it's simply part of almost a duty to read, as some books have been. And then there's one of the other ones that I just don't feel the need to complete and never do. So it was very strange to me to come across this book. Um, I don't know as I would recommend it to anybody. Um, if you do happen to like the entire concept of Harry Potter, but for adults, because there is a lot of adult situations in this book. Um, I believe all of the characters start off at like 17 or something, 17 or 18. They've just finished high school, quite possibly, I believe. Um, so they're of age, but they're still young enough that they're, naive and inexperienced. But you have adult situations. They talk about sexual encounters. They talk about there's the characters consuming large amounts of alcohol. There's swearing. Um, the entire situation is kind of strange and uh, almost dour in a way. And like I said, there's that cynicism that I've picked up from this book that I've actually talked with one of my friends about it, and the one that recommended this one to me, and she said that the cynicism might, like to her, it just kind of seems like realism because they're realistic characters, and that's something I do agree with. These are very realistic characters to the point that, almost to the point that um, if any of these characters uh, did exist in real life, I don't think I would want to be friends with any of them because they're not very good people and they're not very nice people at sometimes. At other times they can be. So I'm not sure if that cynicism was just realism because reading is one of my big escapes. I love to lose myself in a book and lose myself in a narrative and characters and all that fun stuff. So I don't know if that's what turned me off about this book somewhat or not. I don't know. I still haven't decided 100% if I'm going to end up reading the second one, but since I finished this one, I feel more inclined to read the second one than I did while I was still reading the first one, if that makes any sense. Uh, so yeah, it's very strange, very interesting. If you like realism, if you like more adult situations, more adult themed magic, and so on and so forth, definitely, definitely worth a try. Uh, but I don't know if it will be up your alley or not. The best thing I can say is if you happen to be in a bookstore, pick it up and read, I would say, the first handful of pages. We'll say about, yeah, if you can manage it, read the first chapter, if you can. It's only about 17 pages, it's probably quick enough, or skim through it. Although most bookstores tend to be okay about people giving a bit of a read to books. But pick it up, give a read in that first chapter if you're not entirely sure. If it has piqued your interest, maybe shell out the money for it. That's about all I can say. So I'm going to leave this episode here. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. I usually try and put at least one video out a week, if not more. And throw a comment in the comment section. Have you read Lev Grossman and the Magicians? Anything else by Lev Grossman? Do you find it a little cynical or not? Have you checked out the sci-fi series that I believe is currently airing or going to? It's supposed to be coming in 2016. I don't know when. Have you seen any of that? Is it anything like the book? Let me know. I'd love to get a discussion going about the Magicians, about anything really. uh, and as always, until next time, my friends, remember, you should be reading The Magicians by Lev Grossman. And I'll see you next time.